What's up, everybody? It is Ulysses Owens Jr. I'm here with From the Drummer's Perspective, and really glad to be here one more day. It is Wednesday, which is probably about my favorite day of the week because I get a chance to fan out and talk to some of my favorite people who happen to be great drummers. Please let me know where you are chiming in from. If you are in Belarus, Poland, Brazil, we also have some people who are from St. Louis and Jacksonville and Miami. So wherever you are, just drop it in the comment section so we can definitely see who you are and let us know how long you've been checking out the episodes. Let us know what number you're on. We've done over 20 episodes at this point. So let us know, have you checked out 1 through 5 or 7 through 8? But let us know how much you're loving this show because we do it for you. So again, I'm Ulysses Owens Jr. and I'm really honored to be here. And I want to tell you a little bit about today's guest, DAFNIS Prieto. I would say that I first started to be aware of him with my obsession with Yamaha drums many years ago. I was actually endorsed by Yamaha drums probably early 2000s. But I literally wanted to be part of that roster so bad that I would like study the roster, and DAFNIS was part of that. And I remember seeing, his name, and I was like, man, who is this? And I just moved to New York, and I remember researching him, and then I would see him playing around town. And I just, a couple things come to mind when I think of his playing. One is fluidity. Obviously, other is language. Another is substance and mastery. And so I think when I first started to, understand who he was as a player, it was just a drummer. I was just really like into his drumming and continue to be mesmerized by his playing. Then as I started getting a little bit older and I started, getting into what you probably hear me mention this word just about every episode, which is entrepreneurship. And I started seeing how different drummers move and how they set up their careers in certain kinds of ways. I think the first kind of big lightning bolt for me was when he received the MacArthur grant, fellowship, which is a genius grant because he is truly a brilliant genius on the drums and music. So then I was like, all right, I see you, DAFNIS, and since then it's been really amazing to watch his rise as a drummer. And I think for me, I really celebrate that because drummers kind of sometimes get pushed to the back to support everybody. And we don't often get a chance to play in the back, but still be in the front, driving the force. And when I see drummers like DAFNIS be able to achieve things like, Grammy nominated and Grammy winning albums as a composer and drummer and band leader and, all these commissions, you go to his website and you see all these incredible commissions. This is a person and an individual who is doing some great things. And he is, as New York Times says, not taking a backseat to anyone. He is charting his own terrain. So the master drummer, the master artist, the master composer, and also he's been incredibly supportive to me. And I tell every, artist who I've been getting emails, how do I get on the show? We have to have some kind of a personal connection. And DAFNIS is someone I've been watching for many years and learning from him also on social media as well. He has an incredible platform where he's constantly teaching people about new rhythms and that's all that stuff. So anyway, let me shut up so we can actually get this guy on here. Otherwise his intro will last the length of the show. So the incredible, masterful, brilliant DAFNIS Prieto. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Ulysses. Thank you very much for having me.
Man? Oh man, it's my pleasure, man. You've been on my radar for so long. Matter of fact, when I started the show, you were one of the first people that I was like, all right, we got to get him, in the rotation. So thank you, DAFNIS.
My pleasure, man. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here and have a conversation with you and have the people, witness this conversation and go into different places.
Great, man. So, it was interesting, with each artist and guest, I do a lot of research, obviously via website and YouTube and all of that. But when I did my research on you, I did not see so much on your beginning. And I would love to talk a little bit about that. When did you first get exposed to the drums? Obviously, you Cuban heritage, so just tell me a little bit about, where you were born and how did you first encounter the drum set?
Yeah. I was born in Santa Clara, Cuba, which is Santa Clara is a city of Villa Clara, which is right in the center of the island.
Okay.
And I was born there. I don't have any artist or musician in my family of any kind, so I'm kind of a very outlier since I was since I became conscious of what a little bit of what music was and
Right.
arts and everything else. So um, when I was a kid, obviously start being driven by music, and I was born in a kind of very humble and poor neighborhood in Cuba, in Santa Clara, and named El Condado.
Mm.
And I used to squeeze in to see rehearsals, because the people in Cuba used to rehearse in the houses, at least in the environment that I was surrounded. And then the carnival music was rehearsed right in front of my house, and they parade in front, doing the rehearsals, and a lot of rumba and a lot of people singing songs and boleros and people, um, so it was very musical environment, and that really facilitates me to get closer to music when I was a little kid.
Mm.
And I started actually playing guitar
Wow.
first. That was my first instrument.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And then singing, some Cuban songs and some boleros, and like romantic songs and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then after that, I was in a house of music with another six um, kids, learning guitar. But then they want to do a group, like a Cuban a band group, like a song band, and everybody had to pick the different instruments,
Mm.
because we cannot do it all playing guitars.
Yeah.
So one picked up the double bass, the other one the maracas and sing, and I picked up the bongos right away. It just something in me that almost like it was, this is the guitar and I love it and everything else, but I have this thing inside myself, which it was already there because of the influences
Mm-hmm.
and the environment that I was part of with my friends. And so I picked up the bongos, and one day we were rehearsing and everything, and in one presentation, the the guy that was supposed to play the claves and sing also, he didn't show up
Hmm.
for some reason to that. So I end up actually playing the bongos and singing like
Ah.
that,
Wow.
singing the clave at the same
Yeah.
time. Now the teacher look at me and just let it pass, but he didn't say anything. He said, "Oh yeah, great." He didn't want to me to feel like or embarrassed or too high in the moon.
Mhm.
And but he went to my mom and he said, "No guitar. You had to get him in percussion."
Wow.
So right away, my mom we start doing the research and stuff like that to get me into the music school. And then when this is all this story was when I was like 7, 8, and 9
Okay.
years old. And then when at 10 I started the training, the formal
Mhm.
training of music in the school.
Okay.
And I did 4 years in the School of Fine Arts
Mhm.
in Santa Clara.
Mhm.
And that was my training was basically classically.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
classical, yeah, classically trained. I didn't go for any other. Everything else I kind of learned it on the side,
Okay.
because of that's what I wanted to do, and that's what it kind of moved me more, and it was more representative of what I was living at
Mhm.
that moment. And that was it. I mean, I did 4 years of classical training there in Santa
Mhm.
Clara, and then I went to the National School of Music in Havana
Okay.
for another 4 years. So in total, I did like 8 years of classical training.
Mm.
And inside of the school, they had some, different different pieces and different things that inside of the school I was already playing some of the bands that they were a mix of teachers and students,
Mhm.
and we were playing different kind of music, a little bit some of jazz also. And
Mhm.
that's where I kind of start listening to jazz and other artists from
Yeah.
different cultures and different places in the world, not only American drummers but
Right.
other different kind of music.
Man, so that's really interesting, Daphnis. One, the classical training. Before I kind of go deeper into that, you know, Cuba is obviously, cultural mecca, musical mecca, a place that influences so many other people's genres of music. What would you say the fact that you grew up in Santa Clara, but just in the country of Cuba, that you gained, that you feel had you grown up in America, that you would not have gotten? Like, what are maybe a couple of things that are just, I mean, obviously you talked about, some of the carnivals and things right in front of your house, but what are maybe some other really key things that you feel that attributes, to you being the musician you are today because you grew up there?
I think the social environment also was very helpful.
Mm.
It's a very open environment in a way that it doesn't matter if you're a musician, it doesn't matter if you're, it's just like it's very welcoming
Mm.
society in a sense of the human aspect of it. So I have friends now much older than me that they tell me story. I looked at you and I say, this little kid, he's so curious,
Yeah.
let him in, or let like
Mm-hmm.
this kind of thing. This really facilitates everything on my
Mm-hmm.
side, because I felt welcoming in a way, especially when I went to see other people, rehearsal, when I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to talk to a specific musician
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. I think the culture in itself is almost inevitable if you have the sensitivity already in your DNA in a way, uh, and you connect with the wide and deep, uh, uh, realm of the culture, where we have an amazing culture that is so powerful, huh? And that really helped me to find myself
Mm-hmm.
pretty quick in terms of this is, you're a kid, and then you see the people that you start admiring. The first drummers that I saw were the local drummers around
Wow.
around
Yeah.
around me, and those were kind of my guides.
Yeah.
And it just culturally is so powerful, especially rhythmically
Mm-hmm.
also. And that was really important for me, and also to experience the culture, you being inside of it, not only listen to music in a
Right.
radio or listen to music in a CD, or or an equipment or something, but just experience it there, just walking around. Let's say that I'm going to visit you to your
Mm-hmm.
house. In that trajectory of going to see you, I might see like a couple rehearsals on the way. You know what
Wow.
I'm saying?
Okay.
So that's it, because people there, they live with their windows open, door open. It's a
Okay.
different environment. That's what I'm saying. It's not like
Yeah.
we're rehearsing here, nobody look
Right.
at us.
Right. Right.
You have that also, like people when they rehearse in theaters and stuff like that, but like we have here in the US and everywhere else. But in that level of existing, in a way of being
Mm-hmm.
around, musicians and artists, really made a huge impact in
No,
me,
that's
because,
beautiful.
as I say, I didn't have the luxury, or in a way the facilities, or that I had, like anyone in my family as a musician. So I
Right.
had to
Right.
look at that. I have to look for those things outside of my place.
Okay.
But then the environment was welcoming. That's why I'm
Yeah.
referring specifically about the environment.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And then the other thing which I've noticed about your playing, I think probably one of the first things that stuck out to me was your touch,
Mhm.
on the kit. And especially it reminds me a lot of Blade, and that you pull sound out of the drum, you kind of press in, which makes sense that you're a classical of your classical background. Cause I also grew up obviously in the church, but I spent most of middle school and high school playing classical percussion, particularly classical snare drum. And I feel like drummers who've had that kind of background, they get a certain touch out of the kit. So I want to go a little deeper into you, particularly your classical snare drum technique.
Mhm.
What did you study? Was it like Delacruz, the Pratt, like were there some like universal names within like
Mhm.
etudes that you played, or was it more specific to Cuba?
Well, we did well, definitely specifically to Cuba, because we didn't have what we all have here in the US now, like or for a long time, like the amount of information. We didn't have that like amount of books. You go now to the music store, you can find 100, 200
Right.
different drum books or any kind of music
Right.
books. We didn't have that in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
I went on the training that I did on technique in the school. It was basically a stick control.
Oh, okay.
We did a lot of stick control. We did the John Pratt
Uh-huh.
also. We did some etudes. I remember actually one etude, one piece named "The Train," which I forgot the composer of that, but I was thinking about it the other day. It's like, man, that piece was so significant to me. I mean, I loved it when I was doing, but I didn't know how much it was going to represent, even unconsciously, after a while, because it really, that piece, you should check it out.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, what was significant about it?
Well, it's called The Train, and what it did, it was like it really imitate a train ride. So it starts with like a very very soft roll, like press roll, and then it starts like
Yeah. Yeah.
and then little by little, like ting can ting tran tran can ting tran ting can ting tran tran can ting tran trakata kata trakata kata trakata tan can ting tan tran can ting.
Yeah.
It was very, all of this, like if you're going on top of the train, the whole
Yeah.
journey. And when you go through the bridges, like there is a different
Yeah.
pattern. Let's say that you're in the train, like chickete chachakete 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 chacha, and then you go into the bridges like and then you go faster and faster, and
Wow.
then it's like the whole journey was a wonderful piece, and I really, that really influenced me, and I really got a lot out of that. It's not only for the technique, but the connection between that and the imagination of me being the train, the imitation of
Right.
trying to connect that with a real journey.
Wow.
All of that was really important, and I really enjoyed that. And we did basically also, we were also influenced a lot by Russian schools. We got a lot of Russian teachers and a lot of educational methodologies that came from the eastern the side of Europe, and we did the Podensky, which is a snare, which a lot of etudes, wonderful etudes. Also, we before the Podensky, we actually had a book called Body Rich, which I'm going to get actually how, because I don't know if Body Rich ever wrote that book for real. That
But I was gonna say, I don't think he ever wrote any kind of instructional book.
he couldn't write it because he
Yeah, he can
doesn't
read.
read music.
Yeah. so somebody made some money off of Buddy.
Yeah, somebody did it for him and put his name on it. That one was a little bit more of a basics. And you can see that it was not Bobby Rich as is writing, like only 16 notes, just combinations of 16 notes and 8 notes, like tan tan ting taka tika taka ting tan tika tan ting tan tan taka tan. And I think only the last 5 etudes they had like some flams and stuff like that, but that was pretty basic, and it was very helpful to start learning the rhythms and stuff like that.
Okay.
Something we did very interesting with that specific book, because it was so simple like that. In the school, just for fun, we did the book with the left hand, and we did the clave with the right hand.
Oh wow!
So that really started helping me to kind of start putting the whole thing together, and how to be a little bit more open on how to practice. Not only wait for things to be reading for me, but I make it as I see an information. I put it together with another one, and it builds up and developed.
Right. So before we get into obviously, your journey in Havana and jazz drumming or Cuban jazz drumming, sort of the last piece of your formal training, I have to ask, because I know in Cuba there's like not so much, especially at that time, access to instruments. So, you know, what are you playing? What kind of sticks are you using? Saying, you know, I know you have a lot of independence. So, you know, how did you make that transition from, you know, you're doing a lot of this to, you know, you mentioned the clave and you were doing some things on the side. So, you know, I guess kind of first order of business is like, where did you get your first pair of drumsticks, or, you know, were you borrowing stuff, or were there like formal drum kits? You know, how's all that happening? You know,
I'm a very handmade experience guy. I actually, the first pair of sticks that I got, it was by a friend of mine who lived right across my house, and he had a machine, you know, the machines in the carpenter. He was a carpenter.
wow.
So he had the machine where now in the factories, that's what they have. Well, you know, now the robots or the machines do it.
Yeah.
But you know, when in a regular carpenter would do it and do it with his own hand. So he actually did my first pair of sticks. I show him one that as an example, and say, I want, you know, two of these. And I remember he actually did a beautiful that I have still at home in my mom's house in Cuba. Beautiful sticks with a wood that it was two colors. Dagame. It's called dagame in Spanish. I don't know in English what is the name of it, but it was a beautiful. You cannot break that stick.
Wow.
If you break that stick, it's because you really mean it to break it, because
Yeah.
it was so strong, but it had flexibility also. That's why it was hard to break. And that was my first pair of sticks. Someone just in front of my house just did it for me, just handmade like that in his work. Yeah.
And then what about drum wise? Like, you know, like especially at school, were you playing sort of traditional snare drums? You know, and same with drum set. Like what kind? You know, was it Pearl? You know, what did you have access to?
The first drums that there was a drum set at school. In the floor, in the percussion floor, there was one set. It is a tama.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was a tama. However, there were some other drums, like some students own some drums. I didn't own any drums, so I practiced on that tama for all the time, and basically I didn't have any method of any drum method. So what I did, and this was the beginning of what it became after my first book, the Wall of Rhythmic Possibilities. I started practicing the stick control on the snare and the bass drum, placing the right hand on the bass drum and the left hand on the left hand, and then adding on top the clave, the cascara, and the straight clave pattern, and even the swing stuff. When I saw some books later on, like the gene shaping and things like that, it's like, hey, I guess I've been doing some of this already. By, you know, like the combinations between that you can get out of the stick control. And that was really helpful because it started really building up the independence that I was looking for. But in this case, it was independence with the music and the vocabulary that I was part of, the Cuban music. So I, you know, in the right hand, I put the right, you know, the clave, and then I start, you know, building up from there in different subdivisions and things like that.
Okay. Wow. So you moved to as you say, Havana. You're in this music school. You know, where is the relationships now with a lot of the musicians we know of? You know, whether it's, you know, Chucho, whether it's Negro, or any of, you know, kind of more the famous Cuban musicians. Like, so, you know, when did you make those connections?
Well, actually, I didn't make that connection in Cuba.
Really?
I met, well, you know, Chucho was already established, and he was already doing a lot of things. I was a young fellow, and Negro is like 10 years older than me. And when I came to Havana, I only saw Negro playing like a few times, because after that he went to Europe and he started living there. So
Ah,
I didn't have the possibility to really meet him personally or spend that much time with him or
okay.
anything, because he left.
Wow.
So I saw him a few times playing, and he was playing with Gonzalo Rubalcaba at that time,
Hmm.
and that was, I mean, you know, the connection, it came after I came to the US, and after that, then was when I met Negro in New York,
Okay.
and then I also, you know, met Chucho, who I play with in New
Right.
York as well. Um, so that was it. In Cuba, I played there with a few people. We actually made a band ourselves with our own music named Columna B,
Hmm.
which basically means column B. Um, that was really the most one of the most profound experience I ever had musically.
Hmm.
And this is because we were four musicians. The core of that band were four musicians, and I learned so much from them. And I and but also it was such an open platform. We really wanted to play our own original music, not
Hmm.
playing like standards and things like that. We play a few standards here and there, but it was basically rearranged or play straight like original stuff. And
Hmm.
that really gave me the possibility to actually start writing some ideas and have them play it. And we came to the US a few times. We
Hmm.
went to Stanford University
Oh wow.
for a residency when I was like about, I don't know, was like 20 years old.
Wow.
And there I actually met a bunch of great musicians. I met Peter Affelbaum
Hmm.
there for in that trip. I actually met Hutchinson in that
Really?
trip. Yeah, that's the first time I met Gregory
Hmm.
in Stanford. He used to go there all the summer camps
Hmm.
almost every year. At that time, he was playing at that time with Ray Brown.
Wow.
Yeah, and I saw my first trip out of Cuba to the U.S. and I saw Ray Brown with Gregory Hutchinson, and it was just amazing experience. And
Okay.
anyways, that's
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. So how do you get to New York? Because I obviously, you it seems like you've had this really cool and formal training of obviously rhythm and percussion and drumming. You're starting to form groups. So what gets you into the country to be able to live and start to build your career here?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. At the beginning, that was not my plan. My plan was,
Really?
yeah, I was living in Spain and I liked Europe. My first trip outside of Cuba was to France.
Okay.
And I actually spoke a little of French and everything. And to me, my head was more about the European lifestyle, or it was the one that that I felt a little bit more, I don't know, pleasant or peaceful, or
Hmm.
I don't know.
It's a better quality of life
Yeah.
in Europe. You're being
So
kind.
yeah, and then I was living in Spain, and I came to Canada and the US to do a tour with a saxophonist, a woman saxophonist named Jane Bunnett.
Oh yeah.
And Jane Bunnett, I was doing tours with her even when I was living in Cuba. But then this last time, being in Europe already, I came to Canada and the US, and then they actually, when I wanted to go back to my place in Spain, they denied my visa
Really?
for a whole year.
What?
Yeah, so almost like destiny was playing a trick on me, just switching my life,
Hmm.
direction in a big way. I remember I was really overwhelmed and really scared because at that moment I was in Toronto. I had a lot of friends in Toronto, but I didn't really felt myself in Toronto. There is something about those kind of decisions are big decisions to live and to develop and to stay in a place that is not yours. And So many of my friends, especially in Toronto, they told me, you have to go to New York. You have to go to New York. This is the place that you should be going. And I was very scared at that time. I came to New York with a backpack and a pair of sticks. And in 1999, and I did, what I think every musician and survival of what we do will do. You just go out, go to jam sessions, start playing. At that time, there were a few musicians that I knew, like Brian Lynch. I knew from before. I actually met Brian Lynch also on that trip that I mentioned to you at Stanford University. I have met already Steve Coleman, who came to Cuba, and we played in Cuba. So, and also Henry Tregel, who came to see me play in that trip, in one of the trips before to the US, and we met, and he expressed interest in doing something, with me and stuff. And so when I came to New York, obviously I let them know. I gave them a call. I say, I'm here. I made it, and I'm here for whatever you need me or whatever. So that start building up little by little, and everything like kind of branched out after that. And I did a lot of playing at the Zinc Bar.
Yep.
With a good friend of mine, Giovanni Terry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at that time, we made a band with Giovanni, and then Luis Perdomo playing bass, and John Benitez playing. Luis Perdomo playing piano,
Yeah.
and John Benitez playing bass, and myself
Yeah.
on drums. And then Pedrito Martinez came
Yes.
on board. And then the whole, that was a great scene. I really remember the early 2000s scene in New York, which I was part of it. Very vibrant.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm
Yeah.
very excited, especially a lot of things were happening there at the Zinc Bar.
Yeah.
Very interesting, and I got to see so many different great drummers and musicians
Well, that
around.
was and that too, Daphnis, sorry to interrupt. That was like the original Zinc Bar.
Yeah,
The
the
one
one
on Houston,
in
right?
Houston and La
Yeah.
Guardia. Houston and La Guardia.
Yeah, and it's so funny you like hearing you talk about that, because I moved to New York in 2001, and but I was saying my good friend is Obed Calver.
Oh yeah.
And Obed is very close to Yosavani, and so I remember hanging out with Obed, and he'd be talking about all this crazy music he was learning from Yosavani, as well as also Steve Coleman, and so it's funny because I remember seeing you guys were always playing at a Zinc Bar. And same like you said with Pedrito, like he's now this huge star. But I remember just seeing him around, before the ball hit and the, all that stuff. So no, so that's cool. So now I wanna talk a little bit about DAFNIS, you building the career you have, because it's really inspiring to hear how you moved to New York with a book bag and some drumsticks, and you definitely have more than a book bag and drumsticks now. So what was your vision? You're here, you accept that you had to make this crazy decision. How do you go from that to playing gigs, forming your sextet, your big band, as I said earlier, MacArthur Fellow? I mean, that is a lot. So can you just kind of talk about your vision and maybe your philosophy, and then like maybe give us some steps to like how you started to build this world for yourself?
To me, it was all based on the love that I have for the music and for what I was doing. I was really, and I am, I feel I'm still are that same guy, and I feel I'm still the same guy of the 7-year-old that I mentioned to you earlier, in terms of curiosity, in terms of passion, and in terms of focus. This is something that is very meaningful to me, not only in a sense of trying to get some claps from the audience and trying to get some ratings and trying to get some, whatever it comes out as a consequence of that. But to me, the core of it was, I do this because it's really almost like a therapy and a way for me to express those things that I probably won't be able to express in words. and I need, it's a necessity in a way. It becomes a necessity and becomes your greatest partner, your eternal relationship with something that is bigger than myself, and something that that also speaks so much about what life is, the variety, the range, and the wide spectrum of possibilities in music, from different cultures and things like that. I think it has to do with discipline also. A lot of discipline, a lot of practicing and studying that I get out of school didn't really mean much to me in terms of the learning or practicing. I created my own little university at my place, at my home, studying what other people were doing, listening to a lot of music, and analyzing it. Not only listening for the sake of imitation, but analyzing why they do it like that. What does it mean, and why? What are they feeling? Let's say that I'm listening to Indian music or music from Indonesia or music from different places in Africa. It's like, what I'm trying to capture the essence of what they're feeling,
Right.
to make them do that, because
Right.
behind what you play, it must something be felt, or be
Right.
organized, or strategically. It has to have a specific intention. So to me, it has to do with that love for what I
Right.
do, the discipline, and
So how do you, to go a little deeper, like, three major questions. How do you build a concept for a project?
Mhm. It has to do a lot with the imagination, what you have done, in relationship with what you have done and what you haven't. So it's kind of a mixture of that balance in a way. For example, right now I'm finishing the mixing of my latest recording, which is a complete different album that any of the ones that I've done before. It's actually a songwriting album, and it's a vocal album, and I have a great singer, Luciana Sosa, singing my songs, and we did a wonderful collaboration there. And it's basically kind of a world music meets Latin, meets a little of jazz, and it's very round. And I think that's, in a way, another chapter of who I am as a composer, but also as a human being. Um, and 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 just, to me, is, all of these projects are like babies. It's hard to pick one, which one you like best, or what. There are reasons why they are like that, and I think all of them are kind of chapters that
Yeah.
represents parts of my life,
Right.
in that sense. So, like, I would not probably, obviously it's the same we all feel. I'm not probably be playing, or thinking, or imagining, or writing, or creating anything that it's all goes with the times, and,
Right.
and,
Right.
and with the people that I think of that could do those projects as well,
Right.
because it's, you have to be practical also. I want to do a project, but who's going to be in it is as much
Right.
important as the project itself. I
Okay.
mean, I have stuff written that hasn't been published because I haven't found that yet.
Right.
But the specific ones that had come out, um, uh, it have that kind of organization behind it.
Right.
Who's going to do it and stuff
Right.
like that.
So how in terms of composing, being a drummer, many times people ask me, how do you compose? And I'm nowhere near the composer you are, but I know I start with the piano.
Mhm.
So for you, what is your journey of, because you, at this point, you've composed a lot of great things. So are you sitting at the drums and you hear this rhythmic idea, and then you go to the piano? or do you start with the guitar since it was your first instrument? You know,
Yeah.
what was that journey for you?
To me, there are two different things that goes together in terms of the relationship that I always have with composition. It's like, and with drumming as well, but in this case we're talking about composition. um I write on the piano, but
Hmm.
most of the time I write within myself.
Hmm.
So basically it comes the idea of the intent, um uh and then I express that and go to the piano and develop that.
Okay.
I still write things um, by hand at first. So I go to the piano and develop all these ideas. And then rearrange the song and write it there on the piano. That's
Okay.
kind of the classic analog style, I will say. Um, but I walk around, and I used to a lot. Now I have the phone, so I can do it on the phone. But I walk around and recorded a lot of ideas that mostly happens at those times that I didn't have the piano or any instrument, so that I can, uh, you know, develop those ideas. So I record it.
Yep.
I sing the ideas, and I record the ideas there. Sometimes sing it a bass line, sometimes it's a melody. I'm very driven by melody.
Mm-hmm.
More,
Same.
I'm as much driven by melody than by rhythm, to tell you the truth.
Really?
Yes, I always say that I'm a drummer because I love melody, and I say it ironically, or with a little bit of uh, irony behind it, but it is the truth. My first inclination for music was not necessarily only rhythm. There were a lot of songs that I really love, like romantic songs, like you will say, for example, I don't know, Nat King Cole or
Yeah.
Frank Sinatra, or, like standard songs with great melodies and things. I'm a big fan of that, a
Mm-hmm.
huge fan of that. So I could sing the melody. I think a lot of my compositions are very focused on the melody as well. The rhythm many times is actually the last thing that I
Mm.
think of, because
Okay.
it's so natural to me that it's almost like that thing that I know that's going to work that comes later.
Right. 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 Right.
you know
Right. Right.
which
Right.
is which is, many times I write a song, like right now I'm writing a lot of things, but last night I was writing an idea, and I finished up an idea that I've been having for a week already in my mind, and I'm doing all these things, writing the whole thing, and then after I write it, it's like, okay, now what am I going to do on the drums with this?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is most of the time the way it happens.
And are you writing also, Daphnis? Like, do you write like in a sequence too, where like, you know, whether it's Sibelius or something like that,
Mhm.
or like programming and then you're playing to your stuff, like more from a producer standpoint? Are you, or is it just you're right, like you said, you write out a melody and then you kind of figure out like the chord changes and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I do mostly that.
Okay.
I do mostly the writing, the composition writing of the piece
Yeah.
that way. As I say, like for this album, which this latest album that I mentioned to you, um, I did the homework of learning my parts,
Mm-hmm.
because they are not the most complicated parts, but they need to be very focused,
Mm.
because of the shape of everything in the songs and
Right.
everything, right? So I did that as last.
Okay.
After I wrote everything, then I say, okay, let me put the headphones with the MP3 files from the Sibelius, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
I go to the drum set and I say, okay, what am I going to do here? What does it sound better? What I do, and then when I go to the studio, that's kind of taken care of. But most of the time, as I say, I'm mostly putting my attentions out there about everything else but myself. And then I'm the last one.
Obviously we'll talk a little bit more about sort of the evolution of Cuban or drummers from Cuba and all that, but
Hmm.
obviously you won a Grammy, man, for your record, your
Hmm.
big band record. And I know, as you said earlier, you don't do it for that. None of us for the most part don't
Hmm.
do it for that. But what did it feel like, or I should say this, when you were creating the album, putting the band together, did you have this feeling that, and not that Grammys make things special, but they obviously open doors, but did you have this feeling that, man, this thing that I'm creating is pretty special? And then to see the way the world received it, like, can you maybe walk us through that that process of creating that project that really changed? I know it changed a lot of things for you.
Yeah, that project was specifically with a big band, and
Right.
I already have written things for big band, for like commission, for other bands on that with that configuration. But then I received a phone call from Eric Oberstein, who has become my great collaborator and producer after, since then.
Okay.
And one day he just called me and say, I want to do something with you. We need to do something together. And I just finished at that moment to publish my first book, and I was really exhausted, a lot of work and things like that. And man, something just came to me. It's like, if I'm going to have someone, I better build up something that is bigger than what I have done already, because now I have someone that can help me out to do bigger.
Okay.
And he say, he asked me what project you want to do, and I say, well, we can do the quartet, we can do the sextet, we can do this thing, but I really think that we should do a big band record of all of my music.
Wow.
And he say, let's go for it. I back you up on that.
Okay.
And we went for it. I started from then. It took me like a whole year to write and rearrange all of the music. It was a very intense process, because just the level of responsibility in a way, or expectation that comes with it. Not from me, but in a way, I'm going to do a big band record. There are a lot of great big band records out there, and I wanted to do something that was more representative of the big band sound that I can bring on my own personal way. So that was also, something that I had to work around it. It was a lot of work. It was a great experience for me, learning a lot of research of, voices and voicing, and how to, to cultivate this specific texture, and how to
So
develop.
you did all the writing. You didn't get
Yeah,
any arrange. Wow.
yeah. I did all the writing and all the arranging for that. As I mostly done with all my other albums. Well, mostly not with all of it. I haven't really, um, just have that much collaborations in terms of writing with someone else. That's something that I'm looking forward to start doing more.
Yeah.
And this album that I mentioned to you, the latest one, is kind of a new way for me of collaborating with another artist. In this case, with Luciana, with the song writing.
Yeah.
But in this new album, I wrote all the lyrics except one that I had the music, and I asked her to put the lyrics on.
Right.
And another, she revised all the lyrics of mine, and suggest me a lot of things here and there, and that was a fantastic adventure for me. But going back to the big band, it was a lot of work, man. And to me, I used that possibility to also give tribute to a few people that were significant in my development, especially after I got to New York.
Okay.
And the same names that I mentioned to you earlier, like Brian Lynch, Steve Coleman, and Henry Tregel, the three of them.
Yeah.
I invited them to the album, and they accepted, which I'm always going to be grateful for that. They accepted my invitation. They accepted to play on it and to feature there, and I dedicate songs to them. And it was a great treatment. I had the big band has such a great musicians in it, and that's, I mean, it was a huge. I always say it ironically, funny. I say the whole idea here is to make an elephant fly. How can we,
I like that.
how can we make this huge elephant fly? What
Yeah,
can we do?
yeah,
But certainly it was. I mean, I did my part of writing, and I always say that to the musician. I'm just a composer. You
yeah,
guys, you guys have to play the music out of this.
right,
You have to make music out of this. And in all of my albums, it had happened, and I've been fortunate and enough to have the kind of the right musician
right,
to play my music in different periods, and
right, right.
especially on that big band, it was the right collaboration with these musicians. They did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, it's a great record, and as a person who, I released a big band record earlier this year.
mm,
When you say it's a lot, I know what that is, so it's and then being a drummer, releasing that. So I think that was another moment where I'm like, man, DAFNIS is always kind of on the cutting edge. Before I let you go, I have a few other questions. What do you think about DAFNIS, the evolution of drummers from Cuba and that are playing today? Because obviously you have a lot of drummers that kind of the quote unquote Latin jazz,
mhm.
all that kind of stuff. But like I often talk to drummers about like the evolution of jazz drumming today and kind of where it's gone from its beginning. How do you feel about that with drummers, like maybe this newer generation? Like, are there any drummers that are emerging that kind of had a similar journey to you that you feel are carrying on the legacy, or what have you?
I think so. I think whether it's intended or not, and in this case, it was not necessarily. You become a figure or a representative figure for a lot of young
Hmm.
generations, and they say, okay, he's a drummer, but he's also a leader, and he also
Right,
writes music, and he also
right,
publishes albums, and he also publishes books and
right,
teach, and the whole thing, the whole
right.
game you do also.
Yeah,
I think that there's always going to be people talented that carry on that. um, Now the world, as we move forward, uh, in in terms of consciousness, becomes smaller. So for example, when I was younger, 20 years of age or something, those drummers that I admire, they were, in a way, far away from me. It was far to reach out to them in
hmm,
terms of getting to know their music. As I say, being from Cuba and not having, all this information.
right,
Now anyone can just type your name on Google and just
right, right,
search. So there is a lot of influence that I didn't have also, like, the kind of a more gospel chops kind of
right.
thing. That's a lot in the radar for a lot of drummers now in Cuba, which,
Really?
yeah, it is. And they doing a lot of that. The virtuosic, very virtuosic, the sound and the intent is, and they do that inside of the Cuban music, right? Which is great.
Wow.
It's fantastic and everything. I don't come from that
Yeah.
much. um but I see that just as another chapter in a way of the development of it. I have great friends that are younger than me that are great players. I have one, well, a few of them. One is, I can mention a few names. Um, Oliver Valdez is a
Mm,
great, and I am like 10 years older than him. Also, Rodney Barreto is another
mm,
great drummer. Um, but they have their own sound, they have their own influences, that maybe many of those influences that I didn't have, and therefore is a different chapter, sound wise, and
right.
vocabulary wise, and everything else. um,
Cool.
I just see that, to me, what I enjoy the most is to see um, who you are
Hmm.
behind what you play. I
Yeah.
I I That's what I enjoy the most when I go to a concert or listen to an
Right.
album. I want to really hear who you are, and just listen to the first 4 bars. Say, okay, that's Ulysses playing drums.
Right. Right.
What is he trying to say now?
Right.
What
Right.
is he saying to me now? Let me try to capture his intent.
Right.
Because I think every composition should have a purpose,
Mhm.
and as well as every time that you sit on the drums, it should have a purpose behind. Besides the fact that yes, you love music and you love playing whatever it is, and etc. etc. But it should have a specific focus, right?
Yeah. No, I
So
love that. And I
yeah.
love that. So you mentioned about the record that you're working on with Luciana.
Yeah.
What are you excited about, man? I mean, what is it that wakes you up every day? After having released several amazing records, you've gotten accolades. You continue to, as we talked about earlier, get commissioned to write works even for dancers and all
Mhm.
kind of stuff that I'm seeing. What is exciting DAFNIS Prieto today, and what are you looking forward to?
I'm immersed into creation,
Okay.
into creating a world of sound
Hmm.
that is significant to me.
Mm,
I enjoyed many other things, but that doesn't necessarily means that I'm going to represent them. I can
mhm.
see, for example, a musician that I can admire. I will never try to do what he does. That's
Right.
what he does.
Right.
So to me, is that world, that fantasy, that the idea that just the concept that an idea, that is in your mind becomes palpable
Mhm.
after, um,
Yeah.
just that architecture of sound, whether that is playing, whether that is writing.
Okay.
That's what really keep me on. In like last night, I was up too late,
Mhm.
just finishing that song, the new song that just came up to my head, and I'm finishing now. And up too late, and I was listening to it. It's like, eh, that's what just the enjoyment of being in the process,
Right.
the
Right.
enjoyment of being in the process. Most of the time I go to bed, uh with some kind of music that I'm working on in my mind. And
Mhm.
then when I wake up, that's actually what it turns me on again.
Mhm.
Is that oh, that we're working, the work in progress of the development of really, uh, keep on moving on that, with that love and that passion that I mentioned to you
Right.
at the beginning. It just drives me. I think it's a fantastic uh, possibility that we have as artists, to make that connection between the unknown and the known.
Right. Right.
That idea of, you don't know that something could be done, and then
Mhm.
one of the sudden you put the whole thing template together, you
Right.
develop, and you make it happen, and now is a piece of music that someone can enjoy, can get something out of it.
Right.
That's
Right.
almost, it's like alchemism
Right.
in a
Right.
way.
No, man. Well, I love it. I'm really honored to have you on here because it's great to see like the science behind the creativity, because as you and I both were very active on Instagram
Mm.
and putting stuff out there, but it's really cool to like get behind that, whatever the content, and see like what is the real intent in that person's mind. And I always kind of felt that it was pure, but to actually like sit and like rap with you about it, like I could really see like all of the stuff you're doing is from this really pure place of just putting
Mhm.
great music out there, or not even that you're intending for it to be great, but to express music. So thank you, man. I know we're gonna end the episode with you with a you gave to our team. Do you want to maybe introduce
Yeah,
what we're gonna check out?
this clip is actually, this is the album, the sextet album, which we
Okay.
recorded in 2020,
Okay.
last year, during the pandemic, like a week,
Wow.
right, the same week that the pandemic started. We finished the album. I actually had to come back uh, to Florida, um, because one day earlier because the whole thing started getting a little bit weird in New York, and I
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
this is not looking good. Let me get
yeah.
out of here.
I remember that.
And we did that album. The name of the album is Transparency,
Mhm.
and this is with the sextet, and this song specifically is called Amanecer Contigo.
But anyway, I was saying, so DAFNIS, I noticed, I'm in Jacksonville, you're in
Oh,
Miami. I go back and forth between Jacksonville and New York, and so we definitely have to connect. But I just want to thank you for what you give to us, man, and the drumming community and the musical community, and for giving us some time on Open Studio, man, for from the drummer's perspective. So thank you, I
well,
appreciate it.
thank you very much. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here, and I'm really happy to to share the stories and to have an open conversation with you. I think many times I'm wishing to have this kind of conversation with people that are alike in a sense of that are doing a similar things of trying to develop and enrich the world around with sound, and I really thank you for the opportunity.
It's my pleasure, man. So let's check out this incredible music and give our audience a little bit of a taste of what you're doing. Ultimately, you all need to support DAFNIS. Where can they find you? Can you?
Yeah, they can get me on my website. They can sign in, and I send e-blasts and things like that of what I'm
Mhm.
doing, but also on Instagram
Great.
and Facebook. You can find, just type my name on Instagram and stuff like
Great.
that, and I put videos, or I challenge, I do like a challenge thing or just an
Yeah.
exercise, and share a lot of things that I'm doing, and
Great.
that's what the fun is.
Great. Well, thanks so much, DAFNIS. Right.
Thank you.
Cool.